Well, tonight, Donald Trump effectively signaled a retreat in his campaign to control the Strait of Hormuz. Last night we told you that Trump had claimed the strait would reopen as soon as he ended his war. In other words, Iran would move to reopen it only if Trump backed down. And tonight, after declaring we are going to finish the job, Trump shifted his stance, saying it is now up to what he called the countries of the world to reopen the strait, after failing to do so himself despite earlier threats of military force. Here is what Trump said. The countries that depend on oil shipments through the Hormuz Strait must take responsibility for that passage. They must value it, secure it, and protect it. According to him, it would be easy for them to do so. The United States, he added, would offer support, but others should take the lead in safeguarding the oil they rely on so heavily. Those remarks amount to a clear step back from Trump regarding the Strait of Hormuz. He also dismissed the seriousness of the conflict, referring to it as that little journey to Iran, a phrase that undercuts both the gravity of war and the role of the American military. No U.S. president in history has described a military conflict in such minimizing terms. Trump also repeated claims about Iran that conflict with intelligence assessments. He said Iran was on the verge of obtaining a nuclear weapon and could use it against the United States, calling the threat imminent. Intelligence officials, however, have not supported that timeline, and there is no clear evidence Iran was close to producing a weapon at such speed. In fact, Iran's nuclear development has been slower than that of countries that successfully built such weapons. The last known state to do so was Pakistan, which advanced its program in secrecy and surprised the world with a nuclear test conducted in a remote mountain region. In the end, Trump spoke at length without introducing any new information. There was no clear justification for the White House requesting national broadcast time, and networks now recognize that the address offered no actual news, which is normally the purpose of giving a president airtime to speak directly to the nation. He once again repeated his warning toward Iran, saying that if Tehran refuses to reach an agreement with him without ever clearly defining what that agreement would involve, he is prepared to escalate in ways widely criticized as violations of international norms. He has previously talked about targeting civilian infrastructure, including power systems and electricity supply. At the same time, he had assured both Americans and the Iranian public that his conflict with Iran would wrap up within a matter of weeks. Much of the intense media speculation about the possibility of ground troops now appears misplaced, especially after Donald Trump made it clear that the troop movements he had ordered, movements he did not even reference in his latest remarks, were never tied to any concrete mission or defined objective inside Iran. Notably, Trump avoided mentioning Iran's uranium stockpile, which he had earlier described as a central goal of his campaign. His administration had floated ideas about deploying forces, even suggesting that U.S. Marines could enter Iranian territory, secure the uranium, and extract it, an idea many experts viewed as unrealistic. However, just a day earlier, Trump indicated that he no longer considered that uranium stockpile important, and in his latest remarks he did not bring it up at all. He had also told reporters that the material is buried deep underground, making it difficult even for Iran to access, and now he appears to have dropped the issue entirely from his rhetoric. Trump also did not repeat his earlier claim, posted on social media, that the Iranian government had asked the United States for a ceasefire. That claim was directly rejected by Iran's foreign ministry, which labeled it false and without basis. According to reporting by the Wall Street Journal, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps stated that the Strait of Hormuz remains fully under its control, dismissing Trump's statements as largely performative after he demanded that Iran reopen the waterway and threatened severe retaliation if it did not. Although Trump has stepped back from one of his earlier extreme warnings, he issued a similar threat again, saying there would be severe consequences if Iran refuses to make a deal. Iran did not respond to his previous warning, and there is little indication that this renewed threat will produce a different reaction. The head of the Iranian parliament's National Security Commission responded on social media that the Strait of Hormuz would certainly reopen, but not for him. Meanwhile, the average national price of gasoline climbed above $4, reaching around $4.06, and in new polling, Donald Trump has fallen to an approval rating of 35%. So tonight, a struggling president repeated false claims about why he started a war and effectively admitted he is backing away without resolving the core issue his conflict created, which is Iran's restriction of access through the Strait of Hormuz. He threatened extreme measures against Iran while also promising to end his war within 2 or 3 weeks. This was presented as a kind of retreat in his own campaign, as Trump's political support weakens even within his own party. Polling shows a majority of Americans believe the leader seen speaking from the White House is becoming more erratic with age. Some commentators even point to earlier stories Trump himself has repeated over the years, including claims from his childhood about being aggressive and disruptive in school, which he has referenced in interviews and writings. Among the more unusual reactions from his broader supporter ecosystem was commentary from media personality Alex Jones, who described Trump as increasingly unstable and suggested he should step back from politics, arguing that his condition and behavior reflect deeper decline and that his movement is entering a state of collapse. He went on to claim that Trump's inner circle appears unsettled, that officials around him look increasingly alarmed, and that continued loyalty is driven by fear of political alternatives rather than confidence. In that view, Trump would need to pause or withdraw, as his political trajectory and influence appear to be deteriorating rapidly, with consequences extending into upcoming elections. From that perspective, the argument is that when even fringe figures turn against a leader, it signals a broader breakdown of support. According to this narrative, more traditional conservative voices have already begun distancing themselves from Trump over the war. The president, described as being in political decline, is portrayed as effectively giving up in the confrontation over the Strait of Hormuz. He has continued to promise that the conflict will end within weeks, while leaving Iran's governing structure intact and unchanged from before the war. He would also leave behind Iran's potential nuclear resources inside the country, while the only tangible outcome of the conflict, according to critics, would be higher fuel prices, rising costs across global markets, and further strain on international supply chains. In this framing, a president who entered conflict without clear justification is now left with significant political questions, but his latest remarks failed to provide any convincing explanation for the war or its outcome.